All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking football and we're recapping that draft. 263 players selected, a lot of Bulldogs, a lot of people from Georgia. But unfortunately, for another year in a row, my co-host's name was not called to the podium. Fresh, how you doing, buddy? You okay?
Perhaps an amazing draft, complete just entertainment factor. I think I wrote about it on Spinnable Sports. Vegas and the NFL draft are the perfect combination for each other. Glitz, glamour, gambling, bets, taking risks. It's all there, and it definitely came to fruition this past weekend.
So, Fresh, where do you want to start? Let's go with this. Who had the best draft? Let's just start there. Which team had the best draft in your opinion this weekend?
Well, that's a pretty right off the bat place to start. I think the New York Jets got it. You already have two top 10 picks. You go out there and get Sauce Gardner, who I thought was the best corner. You get Garrett Wilson, who some people has the receiver. I don't think you did either, but still top 3 receiver. And then you come back in, you get Jermaine Johnson. I was a lot higher on him, along with other people. You weren't as high on him. But bringing the 3 of them right off the bat and showing that aggression, getting what, according to the Jets, 2 of their top 8 players they got in their draft. And then getting Breece Hall later on, and you pairing up Breece Hall with current Michael Carter on that team, really trying to run the football, control the clock, and you sort of saw a mentality change from the Jets. They brought a little energy. They went after guys. They were going to be explosive and aggressive, and from top to bottom, I really, really, really loved what they did. If you had me ask one team that really aced it, I think the Jets did. I think there's a lot of teams that had a great draft. I think the Jets are the best.
I agree. When I was looking at this and I was watching throughout the weekend, every single time we watched the first round together, both of us were impressed with the fact that they wound up with Gardner, they wound up with Garrett Wilson, and then they wound up with Jermaine Johnson. In that first round, regardless, we're all projecting here. And like you said, I was not as high as everyone else on Jermaine Johnson, but again, he still was an obvious first round pick to a lot of people. I thought he was the second round pick, but it still doesn't mean he's that bad. And then on top of that, to land a person like Breece Hall, who is arguably the best running back in this draft. And then the one that I still really love, and even more, and I think that the NFL is going to untap this guy's potential, is Jeremy Ruckert out of Ohio State. When you're sitting there and you have all of the wide receivers, you have the running backs at Ohio State, the tight end is an afterthought. But Ruckert made some huge plays at Ohio State. He is a great run blocking tight end as well. He's going to really, really probably add a little bit more size to him, but an NFL franchise is going to easily be able to do that. I think the Jets are the only team that got an A plus out of this draft. I think there's other teams that got A's, but I think that the Jets are the only team that got that A plus because they did a phenomenal job and they wind up walking away and saying that we really got better with our football team.
I think more teams got A pluses than just the Jets. I got to look at the Eagles because the A.J. Brown trade, that's part of your draft. You made moves. You gave up a first-round pick for him, and you end up getting A.J. Brown. So you get A.J. Brown, you get Jordan Davis, you get Nakobe Dean in the 3rd round, and then you bring in Cam Jurgens, who Jason Kelsey personally was in with the Eagles front office staff and scouted for the best center and said, this is the guy who I want to replace me. This is the guy who will replace me, and personally basically handpicked his successor. You come away with that from Eagles' perspective, you've nailed it. You have Devonta Smith now. You have A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts there. You have the number 1 rushing team in the league last year, solidifying the offensive line, adding more depth, and then defensively bringing a stalwart at tackle and a middle linebacker who I even mocked to the Eagles before the draft as a guy who embodies that Philadelphia spirit. And it's going to really bring a little more, accountability to the Eagle defense. And you're going to see them making a major strides. And I honestly, them being a playoff team last year, they have a very good chance of winning that division and really and making a big jump this year.
So I have the Eagles as an A, not an A plus, and there's one reason why, and it was basically their 6th and 7th round pick. I'm not in love with those guys. I mean, they're all right. I guess you're taking them as filler needs there. And then the fact is, even if I take the three of them out of the equation, yeah, I'm with you on all four of the players that you just rattled off. And again, you got to include A.J. Brown as part of this draft because you traded for him. And then on top of that, you gave him that hefty extension. Quality over quantity here. And that's the only piece. Like, if you would have had one more player, if you would have had a fifth player that I would have really, really liked out of this draft that you picked up, they only walk away with four, which, again, they've added four great pieces, it looks like. I still give them an A, but that's the difference of me giving them an A versus an A+. It's that only having those four players with this draft.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, getting you want to get the elite guys, and just, maybe to carry on, I have some thoughts on some other teams that really, I think, maximize their draft picks and where they were actually, listed at. Starting off with the Houston Texans. I'm not going to give them an A+. I'm going to give them an A. When you come away with Stingley Jr. at 3, you get Petrie, your safety now. You get John Mechie the third. So when he gets fully healthy, now you have a guy who can run the slot, really help that offense out and pair off with Brandon Cooks. You get Christian Harris, who's played linebacker there at Alabama, steady player in the middle of the field, really going to give them a little, more of that veteran leadership perspective because he was under that Nick Saban defense and has that, accountability on the field. And then really going after a guy that we both talked about in our run-up to this, Damian Pierce from Florida, who I honestly thought was the third best running back in this draft, a more of a thumper kind of guy who's going to help bring some, juice to that team. Didn't get as many carries at Florida, but he definitely had a ton of touchdowns, so he definitely has more shred on the tires and is going to help out that situation with Davis Mills at quarterback because they did not address that spot. And the other team, staying in the AFC South, looking at the Indianapolis Colts. They didn't have a first-round pick. They come in, they trade down from their initial second-round pick, move down, grab Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, getting a lot of comparisons there to Jordy Nelson, 6'3", runs real fast, great connection to Ritter when he's at Cincinnati. So it's going to have that kind of mix and be that number 2 with Michael Pittman there in Indy. And then you add in Jelani Woods, the 6'7" tight end from University of Virginia, really a raw kind of player. He had some success at Oklahoma State, transferred to Virginia. I think there's still a lot of potential there in getting a little more from the route running perspective. He has soft hands, but getting that more blocking perspective, getting better at the routes, he's going to turn into something special there in Indianapolis, and they love tight ends there. And then you look at Bernard Raymond. There was even talks of that tackle from Central Michigan going in the first round. He falls to them, and later on, late third, fourth, I believe fourth round. You get a guy there to help solidify that offensive line, maybe be a swing player. You don't have to throw him in that starting rotation of the front 5 immediately if you don't want to, but you do have someone who can get in there and help protect Matt Ryan and look toward the future. So I think the Colts and Texans did a great job there, really addressing areas of need. I kind of initially mocked them to go get an extra pass rusher to help develop that, but then looking at that roster and talking to some other buddies of ours, really maybe reevaluate. You know what? They may need an extra pass rusher, really get some explosion on the offensive side, and they address that in the draft as well.
You're a lot higher on Indy's draft than I am, and it's not hating on them by any means, but they're not one of the, I wouldn't say they're in the top 5 or even the top 7 of all of the teams out of this draft. I don't feel like they had a top 7 draft right here. Houston's interesting because I feel like there's an argument to be made with them. I love the pick of Kenyon Green at 15. I think that he can play on the right side of that line and open up some running holes there. I'm very interested to see how Mechie comes back from that injury. If he comes back fully healthy, they got a steal for him at the 44 spot, because without that injury, he's a first-round pick. We're seeing more wide receivers go off the board. I think that injury was a huge deal for him. We've talked about Petrie, again, the Baylor safety as well. He was really, really good. Damian Pierce, I wish he was a little bit faster. Like, he reminds me of, I'm trying to think of a great running back comparison for him. He's going to be a bulldozer. I mean, he could be a Jerome Bettis type player. Just a guy that's going to pound you down and eventually going to be able to, break off a long run. I wish he was a little bit quicker, but you're right. If you're going to sit there and just wear down an offensive line and wear down a defense, I think he's a great addition to the Texans team. The only thing I would question is the Stingley pick, actually. And you're not going to have a lot of people I guess there might be some people out there that question him, I like Sauce Gardner better than him, but I also thought that you probably could have gone a pass rusher there. And, I know that Walker and Hutchinson went 1-2. I thought Houston could have been a great spot for Thibodeau. I thought that could have been a perfect landing spot for him. But, we're really talking about like minute details right now here, too. So I like the Houston draft a lot. I don't really, I don't love the Indy draft, but I don't hate the Indy draft. I'm kind of like, all right, because there's no, I like the Pierce pick a lot from Cincinnati, but other than that, I'm like, all right, let's see what these kids do in training camp. Let's see them play it against the NFL.
Yeah, I kind of ran the Colts where they didn't have a first round pick and they were kind of dealing with lower on rounds and how do they maximize those opportunities when it comes to it. A couple more teams I want to get your opinion on. Your favorite topic, the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. How do you think they did, and where do you think that they hit or they miss, in your opinion?
I hate that I gotta give the Flying Ratbirds any credit whatsoever.
I want to set you up.
I know. I hate to say it, but I love their first three picks. I'm a huge Kyle, as you guys know, if you've listened to this, if you listen to any of our preview show, the reason why Fresh is setting me up like this is because he knows how high I was on Kyle Hamilton. And he was my number one overall player. They got him at 14. I think the dude is going to be an absolute stud. I think that Baltimore has just gotten their thumper of a safety, a guy that can really come in and control that defense. Tyler Lindenbaum, the offensive lineman out of Iowa, I was high on this guy. I think that this is the perfect way to rebuild that Baltimore offensive line, because what a lot of people don't remember when they look and they want to criticize Lamar, they want to criticize that running game over there in Baltimore. They lost a lot on their offensive line over the last couple of years. Between retirement or between trade, shipping people out, they've lost a lot of pieces that really made protecting Lamar special. If Lindenbaum can protect him from getting pressure up the front, I think that could pay off and be a huge, huge pick for them. And then David Ojoby, I loved the idea of maybe being able to steal him. I thought he would have been a great addition to the other side of that defense opposite of Myles Garrett. If he comes back from that knee injury, he could be something really, really special with him. Looking at some of their later round picks, I know I kind of took to social media. Jordan Stout wound up being a punter taken in the fourth round. I thought that was kind of funny. I get it. This wasn't a super strong draft. Like, this wasn't a great draft. Like, there's good players in this, don't get me wrong. But you're taking a punter in the fourth round. I kind of can't really do that. I get it. There's kind of a run on kickers and stuff like that, but come on, guys. A punter in the fourth, I'm not feeling that one. So, what was your take about Baltimore?
Well, I think Kyle Hamilton he's the best player at the board when they got there. They had already had two safeties in the roster, but you bring in a third, you can't pass up. I mean, Hamilton, I had him as my 10th overall player. You had him as your top player in the draft. He's there in Baltimore. You just got to get talent. So they bring him in. Now he can play safety. You can put maybe someone in the nickel spot. He can come and play inside linebacker every once in a while. You're going to put an athlete on the field making plays. The Lindenbaum selection, he's going to solidify the interior offensive line, playing that center role, giving them a guy that's going to be there for 10 to 12 years. The Ojoby one, really, there's two things. First of all, I thought Daxton Hill from Michigan would have been the Ravens pick because of the McDougal, who's now the DC for Baltimore, was the defensive coordinator for Michigan, and, of course, the Harbaugh connection. It completely just bypassed me that Ojoby would have that same, actually, mentality. He, under McDougal at Michigan last year, burst on the scene, really had himself a great full year, and then having the injury. But now he's going to be back to the same defensive coordinator. Obviously, the Harbaugh brothers spoke. They knew all about him. They had that extra information. He's going to get a chance to fully heal and become a player like a Zadarius Smith. And those guys who's played the edge rushing spot there for Baltimore over the past, 10, 12 years. And he's going to eventually have a great career in that scheme, coming off the edge, being disruptive, getting after the quarterback, especially now with Burrow in the division. You have Kenny Pickett there in Pittsburgh. and Deshaun Watson there in Cleveland going forward, you're going to need guys to get after the quarterback, and the Ravens play defense. I think those three right off the bat. I did scratch my head at the punter. I thought that was a little reach, but I really think they were going for the quality up front, and they get three guys. I'm not too upset with them trading Marquise Brown. We got to forget that part. What did Marquise Brown really do in his time? He's faded after his first year. So it wasn't, in my opinion, a big loss. It was, Lamar might be mad about it, but in the end, they weren't really torching it. He wasn't a 1,000-yard receiver, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe they can improve the receiver situation through free agency. There's still tons of guys out there, but I think from the draft, they do what they do, solidify the offensive line, get pass rushers, and get athletes on the defense to make difference.
All right, so let's go over to the second team you mentioned, Pittsburgh. And I thought that this is the perfect landing spot for Kenny Pickett. We had both talked about the two teams that we thought that would be ideal for him was Carolina. We talked about the Saints and the Steelers, and it winds up being the Steelers here. If he doesn't start, if Trubisky is going to be the day one starter and Kenny Pickett is going to sit, learn, hold a clipboard for a year, and hopefully the Steelers go old school. And if any team's going to go old school on a quarterback, it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett just needs to develop. He just needs that time to get used to the NFL game. You got to give him some time to get ready for it. If they do that, if they don't throw him in and say, you're going to be our starter in week 1, I think that he's going to be okay. I think they got to steal with George Pickens. I really do. I think he's going to fit perfectly in with Chase Claypool. I think that's going to be a steal of a pick right there. And Leo in the third round at 84. Great pick right there as well. I know some of these other guys in the fourth round, Calvin Austin, he's making a transition. It looks like from Connor Haywood's making the transition, but Connor Austin is going to be like that speedster guy. But, I know people really like the guys and they look at 40 times. I don't trust the track guys. Like, I really don't. If you got that track level speed, you got to catch the football too. It's like the kid from Little Giants who could run as fast as anyone, could outrun everybody, but they had to stick him on his hands, and he's got his hands stuck against his chest, and he's like trying to catch the ball and stuff like that. Okay, like I get it. You can run really, really fast, but can you catch the ball when it matters the most? So that's going to be my two biggest questions with the Steelers.
And catching all the touchdowns and breaking away from the defensive backs. I thought the only real downfall on him is that he's 5'7".
Yeah.
He's gonna be your number 4. He's gonna be a kick returner because you have Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens. Austin's your 4 and your kick returner. And he's gonna be put in the slot, and he's gonna get a lot of bubble screens. He's not gonna have to run down the field as long as they're getting the ball in space. He's gone. But I think with Tyreek Hill, he sort of disproved you have to be certain feet tall to be a successful NFL receiver.
Oh, I don't think it's certain feet tall. I think that he's going to have to learn to catch at the NFL level, and going to get challenged for some stuff as well, because catching the football in Memphis is much different than catching the ball against some of those safeties that are bearing down on you.
That's the same fact for anywhere, for any receiver coming in.
Again, it's the reason why we see mass quantities of players go out of that division, the Power 5 conferences too. Fresh, I got to go to the other New York team because I love their draft. I love the Giants draft here. I thought that I was really impressed with them. Their first 3 picks are phenomenal. Getting Thibodeau at 5. I really thought that Thibodeau could have gone he could have gone anywhere from 1 to the Jaguars all the way to where he goes with 5. And then the fact that you got Evan Neal as well. Like, I mocked Evan Neal. I thought Evan Neal should be the number 1 overall pick. I thought he was the safest pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really did. I thought with his ability to protect the blind side, and I know that they had signed Cam Robinson to this 3-year extension like a day or two before the draft, but I don't care. Like, just give me good offensive linemen. You can never have enough good offensive linemen to protect your quarterback. We differed a little bit on Wendell Robinson, but I thought you got good value for him at 43 there as well. And then a couple, you look at the late round guys here. Dane Belton, Iowa. I kind of really like this pick because the reason why I like that pick is how many times did we talk about the Iowa pass defense this year?
A lot.
A lot.
And they
that
backs all the time.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing where everyone's like, well, they had criticism of us about him, but I was like, but Iowa's defensive backfield was so good this year, and they shut down some very, very high-powered offenses. So I like the pick. Like, if I'm going to take a swing at a dude in the fourth round, I'm going to take a swing on a guy who played on a really great defense. It's the same reason why you pick all the Georgia players. Eventually, yeah, you got your Jordan Davises, your Nakobe Deans, your Walker. Eventually, in the back half of that, you're just going to take the guys that were on the defense because it was so good. Like, okay, you had to have some talent because it was so good. That's kind of how I felt about the Belton pick there in the fourth round. I really like the Giants draft.
I love the Evan Neal pick. I actually had him mocked to the Texans at 3. I've never been very high on Thibodeau because since he came in as the number 1 overall recruit to Oregon, just never saw him have the motor consistently for every game. He didn't play much his senior year. Obviously sat out the Ohio State game. He showed up here and there in the UCLA game. The 2 Utah games didn't even matter because they got beat. I'm worried about the motivation factor. I'm worried about the health factor from that perspective. Athletically, he is a freak. If he's on the field and actually motivated to do something, maybe being paid will be motivated and he'll sort of get himself through the draft. That is going to be the biggest factor for me. Is the glitz of New York also going to distract him? Because now you're getting paid, and we all know he was probably getting paid at Oregon a lot too. But is the glitz of New York going to be a distraction? That's what I worry about. They pride themselves. We've had this conversation before. Giants fans and Giants, in general, the New York Football Giants are about defense, are about getting after the quarterback, the Justin Tucks, the Michael Strahans, etc. The whole list goes on. That's how they were able to beat Tom Brady twice. They put 4 defensive ends on the field, and they got after the quarterback, and they shut it down. Thibodeau's got to be that guy. That mentality of being a New York Giant defensive lineman or an edge rusher, you've got to get 10 to 12 sacks every single year. You're taking 5th overall, you've got to live up to that. The Wendell Robinson pick, though, I was pretty high on him, much higher than you were. I think he's going to be very special. You have Slayton, you have Shepard. They have guys in that offense, but Wendell Robinson is going to come in there and actually be explosive. The problem is Daniel Jones is still the quarterback. They didn't take up the 5th-year option, so it's very interesting what's going to happen there with the Giants and how these guys are actually going to facilitate. Evan Neal's going to be protecting. They got Anthony Thomas on the other. They got Thomas on the other side. Neal now. You got 2 big, left tackle, right tackle. You've got to use them to protect your quarterback. Give Daniel Jones the opportunities. You have Saquon in the backfield. You lost Evan Ingram. I don't think they really truly addressed that situation so far. But solidifying the secondary, the guy from Iowa is going to help. Wendell Robinson, I think, is going to be the most explosive first-year impact player. It's going to take Thibodeau, I think, a while to really get used to being a pass rusher. I think Wendell Robinson's going to be thrown in there day one. Him and Neal are going to have to make impacts right off the bat.
Fresh. So I'm going to give you a couple. I'm going to throw some teams back at you now here. Let's go. I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. Let's go NFC North. Let's go to the Chicago Bears.
Terrible draft.
You think so? Why?
They had needs at wide receiver, defensive line, edge. They've gotten rid of their tackle. They've gotten rid of Khalil Mack. All they really have is Roquan Smith on the defense. They have no receivers. Allen Robinson gone. Darrell Mooney should not be the number 1. They have some tight end depth. They have some running back depth. They don't have the receivers. Did not address it. They went after Kyle Gordon, and they went after and got themselves to safety. It shows to me that they're scared of Aaron Rodgers, they're scared of Kirk Cousins. But you need to address the offensive side of the ball. The defense in Chicago has never been the problem. The offense has been the problem, and that's been a problem forever. Every Bears fan will tell you every year they're begging for offense, and you do nothing. Yeah, you had a second-round pick. You didn't have a first-round pick because you made the trade to get Fields, but you weren't even aggressive to go up and try to get one of those receivers early in the second round, even late the first, and you waited for Kyle Gordon. In the end, the dime a dozen at that point. You might have gotten yourself a playmaker receiver, and they never addressed it. And that's my biggest concern is that you really want to go after and give Fields the weapons, but he still has an empty cupboard. The only pick in that entire draft that really stuck to me was Velvis Jones Jr., but he is more of a kick return. He is the Devin Hester 2.0 that team needs. I don't see him as a number 1 or number 2 receiver. He's not going to be that kind of a game changer. He is a slot receiver. He's just like Mooney. You have 2 little slot guys. You don't have the big outside, perimeter guy, and you have him as a kick returner. So unless you're trying to change the field position of the offense, from that perspective, you're all set. But you don't have that guy who's going to be an Allen Robinson type. You don't have the Devonta Adams type receiver. You don't have the Mike Evans type, the Chris Godwin. That's the receiver the Bears need to give Justin Fields some weapons, and they don't have it to really provide separation. You thought there was a regime change there. They cleaned house, and it still stays the same.
I thought it was pretty bad drafted as well, but sometimes it's fun to talk about the ones who had a bad draft compared to the ones who had a good draft.
I agree.
I like Velvis Jones. I do. I was high on him. I thought he would have been a great late round sleeper. But you spent a 3rd round pick on him.
Yeah.
You spent the 71st overall pick on him.
It just shows some people.
Okay.
There's a classic line that Mel Kiper's going off on the Colts. He's like, I don't think they understand what the NFL draft is all about. I don't really think the Bears understand how to develop an offense. I think this is a franchise issue that goes back to George House. Ever since the 85 Bears, they have not been able to really get an offense on the field. They still haven't had a quarterback really do anything ever. It's all about Walter Payton and Devin Hester, and that is the entire offense the Bears know for the past 35, 36, 37, 40 years. And that's a problem. You love to be the monsters of Midway. You play defense. You have tons of great middle linebackers, Butkus, Roquan Smith. There's history there on Charles Tillman on the defensive side, Brian Urlacher. They're great there. But how they have never addressed the offensive side of the football in 40 years is the reason why. Rex Grossman is the best quarterback that's played for the Bears since Jim McMahon. He's actually might even be better than Jim McMahon. Justin Fields has not gotten to that level yet. That right there should tell you something. Thomas Jones and Rashawn Salam, these guys are the gritty running backs, and I understand that's a franchise. We want to be tough. We're the Bears. It's cold and Soldier Field and all that nonsense. Packers had to evolve. They had to go from a running team to becoming a passing team. They got Brett Favre. The quarterbacks fell in their lap, but you've got to evolve your offense. You've got to become better. You can't try to win games 10-0. And the Bears still forget how to do this. And that's why Allen Robinson got frustrated there in Chicago. And that's why these guys just cannot consistently score. And they're getting passed by the Vikings. They're getting passed by the Packers, the past 20 years. And they're not going to be a team that's going to be a threat in the playoffs because they can't do anything.
All right, Fresh. So let's go to the hometown Jaguars. Number 1 overall pick. I was shocked. Trayvon Walker. I know that there's a lot of rumor and innuendo about him being the number 1 overall pick. I didn't think the Jags had the cojones to do it. I really didn't, because I thought that you would take a guy that had a high level of production. I thought you would take the Hutchinson, or I thought you would take the athletic marvel of a freak athlete like Thibodeau. I didn't expect them to take Trayvon Walker. I talked to a couple of Jags fans on Friday. They hated the pick. They absolutely hated the Trayvon Walker pick. They thought that they look at him as he's a okay player. He's good. He's going to be a good player. He's just not a number 1 overall player. But the funniest thing, though, is when you talk to Jags players, is that they hated the 1st overall pick, but love their 27th pick, where Devin Lloyd, where they think that they got the steal of the draft. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I kind of think it was Trayvon Walker. They're all bad. He didn't finish, first team all conference or whatever, first team all American. The first everyone does that. If accolades mattered, then what's the point of the combine? He played in a great defense, obviously, and there's a lot of other players that maybe have put him in good spots where he was able to make plays. He wasn't blitzing every time. He wasn't always having his hand in the ground. You've got to look at the film and then balance it off with what the combine says. I don't think Hutchinson really showed much to separate himself. There's games where Hutchinson disappeared. Evan Neal was intriguing from the perspective of being number 1, but they already tried. They went and Luke Jokel 10 years ago at tackle, and that bombed out. And that was the number 2 overall pick. I don't think Thibodeau had really performed from a health standpoint or in a tape standpoint to make him the number one. He even was falling down the boards. You're looking at a very average group. None of them were elite enough to be number one overall. No matter what the Jaguars did, Jag fans are going to be mad. You have the Gator fans in town who are mad because he's a Bulldog. You have other people like, oh, Hutchinson, ESPN said he was the best player. We've got to make him the best player. He has to be. Mel Kiper, the best player. Who cares? The pick number is what makes him a bust because now he's expected to get 10 to 12 sacks for the next 10 years. And that even Hutchinson was there. If Thibodeau was there, the name from what they did in college, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's what they do now. And that's where you're held to that standard. If Trayvon Walker was taken at 10 or 15 or 27, they would have loved the pick. Or they'd be like, you know what? He's an athlete. He's a great player, whatever. We're good. It's because you're number one overall. And the Jaguars this year got screwed because there's no number one overall head and shoulders above everybody else elite player. Last year there was Trevor Lawrence. I honestly thought Hutchinson would have been a safer pick just because a little more sturdy against the run. We'll see what Trey Walker does. It's going to have to be a defensive scheme, though. He's going to need all the other 10 guys on the defense to really build him up. They've done a lot in that secondary to help out. And actually, I wouldn't have been mad if they went Sauce Gardner because you put a Darius Williams, Shaq Griffin, and then Sauce Gardner. You'd have had three amazing corners that would have really locked down that defense for the Jaguars. So I think they were doomed no matter what to whoever that pick was. And everybody's been watching mock drafts for 6 months now, and they get brainwashed from whatever ESPN or NFL Network tells them. Is Trent Baalke the smartest guy in the world? No. Trent Baalke's a clown. Him and Shad Khan have that franchise is a mess internally right now. You hope that Doug Peterson had a pretty say in it to at least give them some sort of pause. Peterson's won a Super Bowl. He's coached Andy Reid for a while. He's been in the NFL. I would trust him more than I trust Baalke or Shad Khan. So if he was okay with the Trayvon Walker decision, then I think Jaguar fans need to at least accept it and understand it. I'm pretty happy more about the Devin Lloyd. If I'm a Jag fan, I'm more worried about the corner they took from Chiquita Baptist in Arkansas. Like, you have all these picks, and you take a dude who's from a school that reminds me of a banana company. That right there is an insult. You draft Muma, the linebacker from Wyoming, but you let Nakobe Dean, who is, I don't care what you say, like, you give me tape from Wyoming, or I want Nakobe Dean, who is on the best defense in the country. I'm going to draft Nakobe Dean. You drafted him a linebacker. Why does it matter if you have Devin Lloyd and Dean or Devin Lloyd and Muma? You didn't draft a receiver to really solidify that spot. Your offensive line could have used some help. You really didn't truly address that either. It left me wanting more. And for all the picks they had, they didn't get aggressive when they had to. They traded up for Devin Lloyd. I get it. Devin Lloyd would have probably been there at 33. I really think. You didn't have to. You gave up picks to move up to get a guy that would have been there at 33. They're probably not terrible players, at least the first couple, but it did not tell me this red team is ready to change and the organization philosophy has actually changed. We've seen them spend a lot of money in free agency before, and they all flopped. They spent a lot of money this year in free agency. Are the guys just getting paid and going to suck again? Who knows? But the draft did not tell me they were making any types of philosophical changes in that front office in that building that says we're actually ready to start winning now, and we're not going to be a bunch of clowns.
So any other teams you want to hit on? I think I got 2 or 3 more here.
Well, I think the New England Patriots.
I go Patriots here.
What are we doing here? Cole Strange. I mean, Bill, are you trying to just gut the entire franchise and, take anger out on Bob Kraft? Is this where you're like just gut the entire thing, bring a bunch of terrible players in? You have no offensive coordinator. You have no defensive coordinator. You didn't go out and get a receiver to help Mac Jones. You draft 2 more running backs. What are we doing? I mean, you're going to let Tom Brady win, and you're going to prove you're not the smartest guy in the room doing this. If you want to be in full control, at least try to make an effort. I mean, there's a story of, a group in Boston, they had a wheel, and they were throwing darts at players on, for position groups, and 3 or 4 times they actually hit the right spot of the player that was actually picked. It's terrible. It's a clown show. You've won 6 Super Bowls, but Tom Brady was the quarterback when you won 6 Super Bowls. You had Rodney Harrison's. You had, the veteran players that helped get that done.
Yeah.
On your own, and you're making a mess of things. And you haven't been a very good drafter anyway. So there's a lot going on here, and you're not helping your case. And it's really frustrating. I mean, I'm not a Patriots fan, but even if I was, I'm screaming at my TV, throwing lobster rolls and, Sam Adams at the wall.
Well, you don't waste Sam Adams like that, man. unless it's the winter lager, but some people like that more than I do. The minute they drafted the dude out of Chattanooga, I was done. I mean, I was done with the Patriots draft. I was like, I'm over it. Man, yeah, you got me like thinking Patriots here, and I'm like, oh, good God.
The Dallas Cowboys.
All right, let's go to the Cowboys here. Sure. I think the Cowboys didn't do that bad. They got I feel like they took the smart pick every time. Like the smart safe pick for most of it. Tyler Smith was a good idea to take. They needed help on the offensive line. So and then the second round, what did they get? They got Sam Williams. He's going to serve a purpose on the defensive line. Okay, is he like a phenomenal player? No, but is he going to be a plug and play player? Yeah, he can probably help out with that rotation there. The wide receiver in the third, yeah, okay, I guess. I like Ferguson out of Wisconsin though, man. I really do, because I think Ferguson at times was really, I don't know. I think that he was actually a half decent weapon. I think that wasn't when he produced stats. Graham Mertz was the worst quarterback. We talked about how much we could not stand Graham Mertz. Like if Graham Mertz got to throw the ball more than 10 times a game, Wisconsin lost. That's why when I was watching some of the tape on Ferguson, when they were showing some of his highlights, I was like, okay, all right, that kid can play a little bit. And then I had to remind myself that Graham Mertz was the quarterback. So let's see what the kid can do when he has someone who is half decent throwing him the ball. I don't hate the Cowboys draft. I don't love it. I'd give them a solid B- rating.
Well, look, I like the Tyler Smith pick. They had to address the offensive line. The same pick, there was a lot better players on the board at the time, and this guy had some off-the-field issues, domestic violence-related off-the-field issues, if I believe I'm correct. That should be a big red flag. I know we got other guys in the league who have issues, and they're being, kept on the rosters, things going on. You're trying to run a franchise and get yourself stability. Why are you taking a guy who has questionable, character? You should be going out and getting somebody else. That was as a desperation move. I think you could have had him in the third or fourth round. You could have even let him fall. The second round, much higher with all the risk. If Nakobe Dean is falling, where half the people are saying he has medical issues, the other guys say he's okay and he's a perfect character, and he fell to the third, why are we taking guys with character issues? You just had a Randall Gregory situation. You put a clause in his contract about character issues, and he got mad, and that's why he backed out and went to Denver. You literally contradict yourself right there. Look, Jalen Tolbert, I like that pick out of South Alabama. Actually kind of had the Packers potentially getting him with their second round pick, and I mocked that. He has speed, solid player, put in the slot. Ironically, he was picked at number 88. 88 in Dallas is a very big deal. CeeDee Lamb has not really given me anything the past 2 years. If you're wearing 88, you got to be like Michael Irvin. You got to be putting up 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. And CeeDee Lamb is not doing that. With Amari Cooper gone, CeeDee's the number one. He better show up and do it. And with them letting Cedric Wilson leave, now Tolbert's going to be thrown in the fire and have to make big plays. So there's a lot of expectation there. The Ferguson pick, they run a lot of 2 and 3 tight ends. Much more of at the line of scrimmage blocking tight end. He was the only receiving option for the Badgers most of the time after play action. He's not going to get down the field 10 yards. He's going to be at 5 to 8 yard range, but he's going to be very good at line of scrimmage, great blocker. His granddad is Barry Alvarez. The dude knows football. He's born to play. I think he's going to be a steady career player. He's not going to be that major game-changing tight end, but he's going to be a difference maker in the red zone and in the short yardage game. Maybe the intelligence side of him will help that team get more of a character build of knowing how to block, knowing the down distance, penalty situations, being more accountable from that perspective. Because we saw there are times where the Cowboys do things and we're all scratching our head. The playoff game is a perfect example. They're running down trying to figure stuff out and not knowing when to spike the ball, and the clock runs out. That's the kind of thing you want, maybe a football savvy dude on the field who understands and can help control and bring some guidance to that team outside of the quarterback Dak, who at times maybe misses some of those moments.
And not having Graham Mertz as your quarterback.
And that does help. No Graham Mertz.
Yeah, that will really help his career, I think.
And this is the last one I got. The Arizona Cardinals. You have a lot of turmoil in that team right now. You just signed Zach Ertz to a contract extension. Your defense has had some moments. You lost Chandler Jones, and you draft Trey McBride. Trey McBride, best tight end in the draft. But you have defensive needs at cornerback position, defensive needs in the secondary at linebacker. Maybe defensive line issues. We talked about them even trying to go after Devontae White or Jordan Davis or Travis Jones at that tackle position to help solidify that defensive line or the offensive line to help protect Kyler Murray. They draft McBride, so now you have two tight ends. And then you trade for Marquise Brown, who I'm still laughing at you even made the move to trade for Marquise Brown and give up a first-round pick like that.
Yeah.
Any of it. Just because his teammate at Kyler. Still the defensive issues. I don't know how he's going to make a difference against the Rams. He's going to make a difference against the 49ers and make a difference against the Packers. I don't see how this is going to happen. You didn't build an offensive line to protect Kyler. And last year when the Packers played, the Packers have Devontae Adams, and they beat the Cardinals because that defense didn't stop anybody, and they were able to get after Kyler, and he was not able to. He ended up getting hurt and missing the next 4 or 5 weeks. I don't know what they're doing in Arizona. I think they're trying to be too flashy. This is not Texas Tech. This is not the Big 12. This is the NFL, and this is the NFC West. And the turmoil is just going to bubble up, and eventually I see that the whole implosion coming in Arizona.
Yep, I agree. I hate to say it, like, bets are ticking. Get your popcorn ready because it's going to be the best drama in the NFL this season.
Yep.
Arizona is going to be the drama show in the NFL this year. I got to give I'll go two quick ones on this. And teams that I really, really liked. The Buffalo Bills. I thought the Buffalo Bills had a really good draft. Elam, we really liked Elam. We thought that he was a good back half of the first round pick. Really good player, is going to be a prototypical corner in the NFL. You really like James Cook. Not as good as his brother, but he's a really nice player right there at that number 2 pick. And I believe, didn't you predict him as going to Buffalo as a potential landing spot for him?
It was him or Breece Hall, but I really think James Cook is going to give them – he can play in the slot. He's going to give them a little more speed at the running back position, help maybe even Zach, because they got Zach on the team right now, running back. They have a couple guys where none of them really stand out, but they're more of the slaughter guys. James Cook's going to give you a third down benefit. You can run tackles, play in the slot, run the wheel route, catch the ball in the backfield, add a little extra element to that offense. Already asking the Bills Mafia how to, that he can already jump off and break a table. So he's already trying to buy into the culture. And, that guy, he's a flashy speed. I think the Bills were also missing on that offensive side, where outside of Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis is a great hands guy. But now you have a flashy speed guy to go along with Diggs and possession receivers as well. I think that's going to be a great fit up there in Buffalo with Josh Allen.
And my favorite pick, because I was on Twitter when they made the pick, and it was amazing to see the reaction, was in the 6th round, Matt Ariza, the punt god. Listen, if I'm going to take a punter, I'm going to take this guy. I criticized Baltimore for taking a punter in the 4th round. At least take the dude that can punt the ball 85 yards. He's so diverse, and he is a guy who can kick off. If he were like someone made, I can't remember if it was NFL Network or if it was ESPN. I was flipping back and forth between the two. And they made the statement like, when your kicker goes down, like I believe it happened to Pittsburgh either this past year or the year before, you have to go for 2 every single time. And certain times you want to go for 2, certain times you don't. And having a punter that is able to kick those extra points, if need be, he's a perfect addition. I want to see how far he can punt the ball in that buff weather. I want to see if he can boom an 85-yarder in the Buffalo weather. I think I loved the Bills Mafia on Twitter, like their reaction to him being selected, because we follow a lot of Bills fans on Twitter, and it was hilarious. A lot of them just the same statement I kept seeing over and over and over again. Get me a table.
Get me a table.
Yeah. So the other one that I'll say real quick here, Fresh, that I thought had a really, really good draft, it was the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought that they drafted for need really well. Trent McDuffie, little undersized, don't love him as a corner, but he plays bigger than what he is. I thought that they hit a home run with George Karlaftis out of Purdue. And then the fact that they picked up Sky Moore, I think he's going to fit perfectly around with Sammy Watkins over there. And then on top of that, they have a couple more guys that they are coming into. But you take a look at them, they did a really good job in this draft. I felt that they really filled their needs. You look at Brian Cook out of Cincinnati as well. I thought that he was a very smart safety that they can play with him. They can kind of move him around a little bit more. I
You
thought
know,
that Kansas City had a good draft.
I totally agree. Like they took advantage of getting the picks from the Dolphins, and they were going to maximize them and they really develop the entire roster. I think they also learned the AFC West is catching up with them, and the AFC in general. The Titans are getting, the Titans are always there. The Colts are going to be better. With the Jets are doing, the Dolphins now, Bills, and then the Patriots, and then the Bengals being solid. If you get a healthy Ravens team, they're going to be competing. The Steelers, I think, aren't going to really be allowed to miss much of a beat. And the Browns, once Deshaun gets all settled in, they're going to be fine. They've got to keep themselves going because they cannot fall behind. They have a lot of money invested in Mahomes, so bringing in free agents over time is going to be a little more difficult with that cap management. So they have to be able to draft well and develop these guys, and had to make sure they nailed it this time. So I think they did a great job. Just even to wrap up on great drafts, I did find it very entertaining. The Seattle Seahawks, the entire time that Russell Wilson was there, he had the receivers. They got Lockett, they got DK, but they never could protect the quarterback. They draft 2 tackles. They go out and get Cross, and they get Andrew Lucas from Washington State. They bring in 2 tackles the year after they trade him out. Was that a way to basically tell Russell, we're going to spite you on that one? Maybe a little slight to them. I don't know. It's kind of like maybe just send a shot across the bow. So that was interesting. And then they also getting a Shaq Griffin, replacement with Kobe Bryant, who played across from Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati and actually was the Thorpe Award winner. So get a nice little solid corner there, kind of maybe get back to that Shaq Griffin, Richard Sherman days. They have that lockdown corner, and you get 2 tackles, to protect. And they did not draft a quarterback, so it keeps the speculation open. I can guarantee San Francisco is not going to trade Jimmy G to a division rival, so it leaves the Baker Mayfield situation wide open there. But just that right there was a pretty funny coincidence that the Seahawks pulled down.
All right, Fresh. So one last thing before we sign off for tonight. I'm going to have you do this, and I'll do yours. So I want you to review the Browns draft, and I'll review the Packers draft. I'll let you – you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You can go ahead. Go first.
All right. So first off, with the Quay Walker pick I like the pick. I know everyone wanted – right then and there, they wanted a wide receiver. Like, that was the thing with Green Bay, that they're like – we want to have a wide receiver no matter what. Like, that very, very first pick had to be a wide receiver. But at the time, like, at that pick, who was still on the board? At 22, who was still on the board that was a wide receiver that you wanted to take? You were down to, I believe you were down to Pickens and I can't think of who else. But what I do really like with Green Bay here, and I'll say this, I thought you got a heck of a player with Walker right there. I thought Devontae Wyatt, I thought that was really interesting as well. So I'm like, well, is Georgia just going to draft every player off of the Georgia Bulldogs and make Fresh really, really happy here? Because at 34, they had an opportunity to take George Pickens then too. And I thought it was like, this would totally make his day. But Christian Watson, who was not on my radar, who's not a player that I had looked at very much at all. I recognized the name. I like the guy's size. I really, really do. At 6'5" and 208, I like the dude's size. I think he might be fitting. But I'll tell you this. Here's where I thought that Green Bay got an absolute steal. An absolute steal, because I did look at this guy. Sean Ryan in the 3rd round at 92. When I looked at him, I actually had a first-round pick on him. Now, again, I was looking at him right at 31, 32, right in that area, very, very late first-round pick. If he wasn't taken in the first round, I thought he was going to be taken in the early 2nd round. I thought that you got him at 92 was a steal, because one of the things I got to watch with him was him going up against Thibodeau. And when he went up against Thibodeau, he held his own time and time again, and wasn't overmatched by arguably who was maybe one of the top pass rushers in this draft. So the fact that you were able to get him in the 3rd round, and not at the beginning of the 3rd round, late in the 3rd round, I thought that they got an absolute steal right there. So I thought that if I had to grade out the Packers draft, I'd give them a B+. And especially, I think that I would say B prior to it, but getting a steal like Sean Ryan out of UCLA, I thought that's what pushes you up to the B plus.
Yeah, I mean, like Quay Walker is a very athletic linebacker. He's going to fit right next to Campbell, and then but obviously you have this, Smith and Gary, the two edges. So he's going to be able to cover the middle of the field, be a nice little solid tackler. Jerron Reed and Kenny Clark, their defensive line, little pass rush ability, can obviously stuff the run. You have Slayton from last year. You have four nice little defensive linemen there. They can really rotate. I thought that was solid. I really didn't expect Christian Watson. I didn't want him in the first round. I thought that would have been too much of a reach. Him there in the beginning of the second round, them trading up was, I think, great. They were aggressive. They went and got him. He's going to, I think the pressure's a little bit off of him now. He's not a first round pick. He's a second round guy. You have that 4.3 40, that nice size. You just kind of hope that you're not getting stuff in it from an FCS perspective where the defenses weren't as involved or the talent wasn't there. And you're seeing film against, air. I want to see, can he adapt to the passing game? Can Aaron Rodgers develop a connection? And does he understand route concepts? Can he learn from Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb? Those are the guys you really want there to help tutor and teach these guys to get them prepared. Getting Dubs from Nevada, a 4.2 40 guy, 4.3 guy out of Nevada, speedster, kind of maybe be that MVS kind of fit. I've reached out to Nate Burleson to see if he's, Nate Burleson 2.0. Haven't heard back, so still waiting on that comp. You like Ryan? I actually was very high on Zach Tom. I actually had Tom as a third-round pick, and the Packers getting him late is a steal. So you get two swing linemen, you get two receivers, two elite defenders, and you build some depth the last few picks there. We know the Packers need to. They're going to have a very good defense. They're going to be easily top 8 defense in the league next year. They're going to run the ball with Kalen Hill, Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon, and they're going to run play action off of it, mediocre routes, getting the guys in space and developing in that way, and then using the defense to keep the game within hand, and hopefully, God forbid, being better on special teams. I think that's where their philosophy is right now, and is draft to develop and have it build an amazing defense.
The Browns are a hard draft to look at because they don't have their first pick wasn't until early in the third round.
I'm not a big fan of the Martin Emerson pick. I thought that was a reach a little bit, a corner right off the bat in that third round. But then you look at Alex Wright, your boy David Bell. I love the Perrion Winfrey pick. And then the Jerome Ford pick. Those four guys, I think, were solid playmakers who have been on winning football teams, and they're also just going to bring talent. Winfrey is a major, major rock in the middle of the defensive line. He's going to give a lot more penetration, allow Myles Garrett to get a little more one-on-one separation on the edge, and to keep that pass rush flowing. Ford is that nice little third down running back. He's not going to be like Kareem. He's kind of like a Kareem Hunt, but he's going to be a little speedster. Kareem Hunt has injury concerns. We've all seen this every year. If you have a fantasy football team, if you're a Browns fan, you know he's not playing a full 16. You got a guy who's just like him, who they can work in and give him more reps and get him more experience. Also probably help on the kick returning game. David Bell, we've raved on what he did at Purdue. He is going to be a playmaker receiver, going to really help out. I'm not going to say he's going to be OBJ from the flash standpoint, but I think he'd be a very good, consistent receiver in that passing offense once Deshaun is, ready to take the field and get going. The Cade York pick, kicker from LSU.
Well, then there's that.
He was a great kicker at LSU. They take him in the fourth round. Could you have got him in the fifth? Could you got him in the second? I mean, maybe it was a reach for a kicker, but kickers are people too. So we'll see what happens there. He's made a lot of clutch kicks. It's still, I want more from the Browns in that perspective. I kind of felt like they were desperate in that situation. B minus, maybe a C plus. You've mortgaged all your future to get Deshaun Watson there. And with him most likely going to be suspended this year, and then having the whole Baker situation, the drama, it kind of feels like a throwaway year for the Browns just to get through this season and then have Deshaun ready to go next year. It's sad because I think Kareem Hunt, you're wasting a year of Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Myles Garrett. You kind of hope that's not the case, but it just feels like they're going to have a quarterback situation this year. Baker's not going to be there. You can't have both of them on the roster. This draft, I felt like it was for next year. Like, get some guys in the building and really focus on 2023 and not 2022.
We all know how high I was on David Bell. Like, I was really high on David Bell. I thought he was a fringe first-round talent. And again, I go by what I saw with him playing at Purdue. The fact that he was available in the second round, like, I'm shocked that a team didn't take him in the second and that he was sitting there for the Browns at the third. Love the David Bell pick. I'm with you. Have you seen Winfrey's video on Twitter?
I've seen Winfrey's video. I saw an interview with him today. He loves horror movies. So if anyone in the Cleveland or in Upper Ohio, you love horror movies, he is he loves them to a passion. He loves Michael Myers. He loves the Halloween movies. Freddy, any of those guys. If you lock in and want to meet him on social media and talk about some horror movies, reach out to him. He loves them.
Yeah. Did you see the dog comments?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those were good. I like those too. And again, I'm with you. The back half with Jerome Ford in the 5th round, I thought that was a great value pick right there for him. Cade York, I get it. He's the best kicker in this draft, and whatever. Kickers are people too, as you were saying. I still don't know if you wasted a 4th round draft pick on a kicker, but whatever. It is what it is. I'd say the hard part for the Browns is that you didn't have a 1st or a 2nd. The fact that you gave up everything and the first pick came at 68, but also I guess that kind of shows what they thought of this draft. And overall, I think it's an interesting draft. But then I checked something here fresh and made me wonder about this. What team has the most salary cap space right now? It's Cleveland Browns.
I mean, you're paying Deshaun only $1 million this year, though. Next year, that money kicks in.
Yeah,
he's going to be suspended this season.
Yeah. Well, and then also you remember this too, is that you have Baker Mayfield's $18 million. And if you can trade that, that's another $18 million that you free up. Now you'll probably eat some of it to get a team to take him, but you still open up some of it.
I'm surprised they haven't traded him yet. I'm surprised that I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that they didn't move him with all the controversy. Not surprised because both teams are valuing the quarterback market and seeing if they could get anybody else and not have to give up a pick for him.
All right, folks. It was a fun draft.
Got a few things before we wrap up here real quick.
Okay.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say Georgia having 15 players drafted, most all time in the modern era, one school. 5 defenders in the 1st round, most by one school all time. 9 players selected in the first 3 rounds. That was the most. Alabama had 8, Cincinnati had 5, and Baylor, LSU, and Ohio State each had 4. And some other little oddities we got this draft. Texas, 0 players drafted. And it's the 4th time since 2014 Texas has had 0 players drafted in a draft. Let that sink in. It's an embarrassment of a program that's the richest college athletic department in the country. 7 straight years, Ohio State has had a player drafted in the top 11. So it's a major testament what they got going on in Columbus. That is a program that is a modest, just example of consistency. To start the draft, 5 straight defenders. The first time in 31 years that the draft actually had 4 straight players on defense taken. So going back basically our entire, as old as we are, Seth, that's less than that 4 straight defenders. We get back to the thing we always talk about, quarterbacks. 1 quarterback in round 1, that was Kenny Pickett, and then 3 fell to the 3rd round. Sam Howell going to the Commanders in the 5th, I believe, is probably the best situation right now because he's going to sit behind Carson Wentz, let Carson Wentz make a fool of himself, and then become the quarterback. And then obviously Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, and your boy Carson Strong, undrafted.
Shocking.
I believe he gets undrafted. There's guys who were gotten drafted, like Skylar Thompson got drafted. I don't know how Carson Strong did not, but Carson Strong, right before we jumped on here, has signed with the Philadelphia Eagles as an undrafted free agent. Huge opportunity right there to back up Jalen Hurts if he can win that job. And then last 2 things, 17 wide receivers taken in the first 3 rounds. Absolutely just mind-blowing the focus and the depth of that receiver position in this draft. And we had 8 trades in the first round, and we had 30. I'm exaggerating. We had 30. It seemed like 30 to 50 trades the entire weekend. Absolute chaos. Lived up to the billing. Fantastic draft. Now moving to the offseason, get ready for training camp. Can't wait. Really excited.
So, Fresh, there were 35 total trades in this draft.
Man, that was pretty close.
Yeah, 35 total trades in this draft. I had to look it up there because I was very curious about that. My favorite stat, too, and Fresh, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say, you had 3 receivers drafted in order that were all trained and developed at the Ohio State University.
Hey, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And they have a lot more coming, folks. So,
yeah,
it's football. The receiver, and they all produce in the NFL. They'll be just fine.
Yeah. All right, folks, we've had a blast for this. We got a few other things. We're going to be starting to do a few more things coming up here in the month of May. But make sure that you're liking, subscribing, whether you're watching us on YouTube here or whether you're listening to us on a podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or YouTube videos from. Remember, the Rational Confidence Podcast is part of Spinnable Sports. Go to spinnablesports.com. Yes, that is spinnablesports.com. We have pumped out a lot, and I mean a lot of content over the last couple of weeks here. Fresh has been putting out different mock drafts, different draft things, talked about a Vegas guide, even though the draft is over, making sure you know how to navigate Las Vegas if you are going out that way. Definitely love the part that he put out there that every morning in Vegas should start at Ellis Island and for that steak and eggs. Also, great article. I don't know if you've looked at it. Our legal eagle who joined us for our mock draft put out some interesting stuff about NIL. So if you're ever interested in learning a little bit more about what NIL actually means and how it affects college athletics, definitely go over to spinnablesports.com and check that out now. But we've enjoyed this past month. That for all of this draft stuff has been phenomenal. We got a little bit of a lull here, Fresh. We're gonna maybe jump into a little bit of NBA playoffs, but we got a couple of things planned for y'all.
Yeah, we got schedule release coming May 14th, so we're all ready for that to get the NFL season set up. We got NBA playoffs. Stay tuned for articles. We got articles coming on NHL playoffs. We got articles coming on baseball. We got articles coming on college football. And we got more college football preview episodes coming. So be tuned in. We got a lot of stuff coming at you guys, and interact with us on social media.
Yeah, make sure you're following us on Twitter. We're putting stuff out there all the time and love interact. If any of you guys interact with us, we absolutely love everything you guys send us. And whether it's, telling us that we absolutely don't know what we're talking about or you completely agree with what we're saying, it's great. We love it because everyone's interacting with us and you're participating with our content. So
Yep.
make sure you follow us on Twitter.
We got Nick Swisher to like some of our stuff. We got Patrick Willis to like some of our stuff. I got Laura Rutledge from ESPN to like some of my stuff today. We got another couple blue checkers in there. So people are following along. You guys keep staying engaged. People are watching, and we appreciate you guys out there engaging with us all the time.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye, y'all.